debtor's prison. You were put in there. You got fed whatever your family would bring. They didn't feed you, or very little would they feed you. Whatever your family would bring, that's what you got to eat. And you got out when your family got enough money to pay off your debt. Now, it doesn't take a genius to figure out the difficulties in this whole system, right? Probably the primary breadwinner, the dad, is now in debtor's prison. So he can't make any money while he's in prison. They're trying to feed him while he's there, and they're trying to cough up enough money to pay off the debt that he couldn't pay off. Okay, now can you get your mind to wrap around? This guy's in a world of hurt. Because how in the world is his family ever going to come up with the money to get this guy out of here? He's in debtor's prison. Now, got that in your mind? Literally, it's an impossible situation to get out of. Now, another citizen could come along and pay the debts that you owe. You got all these debts. He could pay the debt off, and he could, quote unquote, buy you. And so he buys you out of debtor's prison. You're out of the predicament. He pays the debt, and you work for him. That's what it's talking about. He pays your debts off, and you work for him. How long do you work for him? The passage is clear. 6 years. For 6 years, you work for the guy who got you out of this terrible predicament that you were in. After 6 years, you can leave. You don't owe anything to anybody anymore. That's what it says. If thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years shall he serve, and the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. Now, Deuteronomy sheds some interesting light on this. It says that a person bought in this way is worth double what a slave would be worth. He's worth double higher. Now think about it. That makes great sense. Put yourself in the coolie traffic. You're walking down the road, and all of a sudden somebody grabs you and stuffs you in a gunny sack. You find yourself on a ship floating across the ocean, and you get to the other side, and now you're a slave. How willing are you going to work? You're just plain irritated, right? And the only thing on your mind is, how do I get out of here? How do I get away from these people who have done this to me? So they are going to have to really work you over to keep you working. Now, this guy is not in that position at all. He's worth twice that. Why? Because he was already in a terrible predicament of his own making, and you have rescued him from that. And he knows that this is only a 6-year hitch. And he was worth twice a slave that you might buy on the open market. He's worth twice that. That's where we're at here. Now, verse 3 and 4 are interesting. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master he have given him a wife, and he shall have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and the children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. Now, we won't get into the nitty-gritty of all this, but basically, you leave with what you came with. If you were married before you got yourself into that trouble, then you leave with your wife. If you were not, if the boss allowed you to marry one of the other servants, then they don't go out with you. But after 6 years, you are given a choice. Now, what is the choice? To leave or to stay permanently. Look at verse number 5. And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free. If he chooses to stay, verse 6 tells us what will happen. Then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door, unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. They would go to the judge. This is to make it official. This is to make sure that nobody wrestled this guy down. You know, you've been bought in year number 5, the boss wrestles you down and puts a hole in your ear, okay? You had to go to the judges. The judges made this thing official. He would state plainly, I want to stay. If he stated that plainly to the officials, Then the master, put this view in your mind, the master would take him, stick his ear on a door or on the doorpost of a door. He would take a punch, and I suppose a hammer. And they do not believe it was the earlobe, but probably the upper part of the ear, and they would punch a hole in his ear. Now, what does that say? What it says to everybody, this is pretty visible, right? It's not like on Toy Story. On the bottom of Andy's shoe, on the bottom of Woody's shoe, Andy's name is written, right? And then he writes on the bottom of Buzz Lightyear's. It's not that where I'm owned by this guy, but nobody can tell it. It was right here, right on the side of your ear, where everybody could see. This guy, what it said, that hole in your ear said, this guy is not working for his master to pay off a debt. He has chosen to work for him. That's what it said. It was a public declare. This is who I am. I have chosen. See that hole right there? I let them do that so that I could be right where I'm at. Now, the man was marked for his life. All the people who saw it know that he is not working off a debt. He has chosen to be a servant to his master. Now, let's review this so that it's perfectly clear in your mind. Some of this is all new concepts, so let's review it here. A man gets himself into trouble. He's got a debt he cannot pay. He's going to debtor's prison. A master comes along and pays his debt and takes him home with him. The man is grateful for this because it's the only way out that he had. He spends what may very well be 6 pleasant years. He might have even started a family in that time. At the end of 6 years, he's given a choice. He can walk out free and clear, or he can stay. If he chooses to stay, he declares it plainly to the judge. The master pierces his ear, and publicly he declares, I have chosen to serve this master for the rest of my life. Okay, now, I think that's pretty clear. Now let's dig a little deeper. Try to put yourself in this man's position. Your 6 years are up. Why would you stay? Your 6 years are up. You've served. Your debt's clear. There's no obligations here anymore. You can walk out free and clear. Why would you stay? Well, I can think of 3 reasons why the man might stay. A man might stay because he realizes that he's not very good at controlling his own life. You have to understand, what was his life like before these 6 years? The way of the transgressor is hard. And this man has gotten himself into such a mess, such a predicament, he can't get out of it. You don't think that all the time up to right before he got put to debtor's prison was all hunky-dory or rosy, do you? This was rough, and it kept getting rougher and rougher until finally he's in over his head. And a man might realize, you know what? These last 6 years, somebody else has been controlling my life, and I realize I'm not capable of controlling my own life, and I'm in a much better spot here. That's one reason why he might stay. I am incapable of really controlling my own life. Another reason he might stay is because he likes the life that he has now. He actually likes the life that he has now. Compared with the life beforehand, the life that he has now is really pretty decent. Very well could be very pleasant years that he spent, and he likes the life that he has now. The way of the transgressor was hard, as we said. Life was unsure, it was a mess, and despair had filled his life, and now he looks at his life and says, you know, I don't want to leave this. I really like my life now. This is all that I could ask for. So he's maybe unsure of being able to take care of himself. He doesn't know how to control his own life. He likes the life he has now. And number 3, love. Yeah. You know, when he was first bought out of debtor's prison, he knew nothing of his master. He was just going to get out of that place. He went with the master because he paid off his debt and he was just going to get out of that place. It was his way out. But after 6 years, after living and working and serving underneath this man for 6 years, he finally figured out who this guy really was. He figured out that this master is really somebody. And a bond with his heart had developed between him and his master. And he says, you know what? I love this guy. I love my master. I don't want to leave here. I love this master. I came here under obligation. But now my heart is involved. I love my master. Why would he stay? He stays because he knows he can't guide his own life. He looks at the life that he has now and he likes it. And he loves his master. Now, let's go deeper than that. If he chooses to stay, what difference will it make in his life? It's a fair question. You're choosing to, for the rest of your life. If he chooses to stay, what difference will this make in his life? Do you think it'll significantly change his workload, his daily obligations or responsibilities? Probably not. If he chooses to stay and he gets a hole punched in his ear, will he get to sleep in and just lounge around all day? No. Will, because he has this hole in his ear, now become the head of all the other servants? Not necessarily. So what difference would it make to stay? What is the difference between a man paying off a debt and a man with a pierced ear? What is the difference between a man paying off a debt and a man with a pierced ear? There's a huge difference. Consider it. Here's the man trying to repay a debt. So he's working this 6 years. Everything that he does is a chore. Why? Because he's doing it. He does what he does because he has to do it. Right. I'm doing this because I'm obligated to do it. But for a man with a hole in his ear, the work may be the same, but the attitude isn't. It's no longer a toil and strain, but a joy. I have chosen to do this. I don't serve because I'm compelled to. I serve because I have chosen to do so. Look, a man repaying a debt is constantly counting the days. You ever done that? When you're in college, you constantly count the days. When you have when you're on a diet, you constantly count the days. If you are a man repaying a debt, you know 6 years is out there, right? So you get up in the morning, it's hot, and you say, only 4 years to go. Only 65 days more and I'm out of here. He's constantly looking to where he can get away. But a man with a hole in his ear doesn't do that. He cherishes every day for what it is. This is what I get to do today. This is my life. I have chosen to do this. He's not looking down the road so I can do something else. This is where I am. This is what I do. And he cherishes every day for what it is. A man repaying a debt works because of an obligation. It is what is required. But a man with a pierced ear works because of love. What difference does it make? A man repaying a debt toils under obligation, just putting in his time, looking forward to when he can get back to his own life. A man with a pierced ear serves his master with love and joy, cherishing each moment of the day as it comes. Now, I think from a purely human perspective, that's all fairly clear. No problems up to this point. So now let's move into the allegory. My guess that many people in this room have raced on ahead and already connected the dots. Let's walk carefully through it. The fact of the matter is here, everyone here is in debt over their head. Everybody here is in debt over their head. No, we're not talking about your bank statement. We're not talking about your credit card statements. what we're talking about, we have served the world, the flesh, and the devil, and we're over our head in debt. As Pilgrim Progress puts it, I love that part of the book, when Christian is arguing with Apollyon, which is the picture of the devil, he said, I didn't like your service because you don't pay a livable wage. For the wages of sin is death. Look, when you serve the world, the flesh, and the devil, you can't live on that. You're going into debt. Why? Because they don't pay a livable wage. And every single person here is over their head in debt. We have sinned against God, and the debt is higher than we can pay. It's just as it says in John, Jesus Christ did not come into the world to condemn the world because we were already condemned. We were headed for debtor's prison, never to be seen again. That's the truth. It's a fact of the matter. Everybody here was over their head in debt. We have served the world, the flesh, and the devil, and the bill comes due, and we were all headed to debtor's prison. Some in this room are there right now. Some here are still headed to debtor's prison. The bill on your sin is going to come due, and there is no way for you to pay it. Your sin debt is more than you could ever hope to pay, and therefore you are sitting here without hope. The majority in this auditorium have already come to Christ. You came to that conclusion. You were hopelessly in debt, but you came to Christ because of your debt. Now let's get your mind to think clearly on this. You did not come to Christ because of your great love for Him. You came to Christ because of your great debt. You saw no recourse. This is the only way. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. You saw the only way to get out of debtor's prison was to go through the finished work of Jesus Christ. And because of your debt, you came to Christ. You became His servant because you had no other alternative. I think that's fairly clear as well. But where, the question is, are you now in your service to Christ? You came to Him because of your debt. But where are you now in your service to Christ? Are you here serving because of obligation? Are you serving Christ today because of obligation? No, you're not trying to pay off your sin debt. You know that that's impossible. But are you serving the Lord because of obligation? You realize that, as Paul said, you're a debtor. You realize that it's your reasonable service. So you serve. But at the same time, you find the service toilsome. Some of the commands of the Lord are irksome to you. You cannot always agree with 1 John 5:3. For this is the love of God, that we keep His commandments, and His commandments are not grievous. Some of the commandments of the Lord are grievous to you, and you wish that you did not have to obey them. Other times you find yourself desiring to make plans, to take charge of your own life, to do what you want to do. But you can't because you're under obligation to Christ. You're like Lot's wife, who wants to take one last look back over your shoulder. You're like the children of Israel, sitting in the land of milk and honey, desiring the leeks and garlics of Egypt. You want to go back. You serve the Lord because He paid your sin debt, and you feel obligated to do so. Is that you? Others in this room, I'm afraid to say, no longer serve at all. Any obligation you may have felt in the past is gone. You realize that Christ paid your sin debt, but that was a long time ago. And you may have served Him for a time, but now you have ceased to feel any obligation at all. And you've just started living just as you see fit. Some serve the Lord from obligation. Some just cease to serve. Their 6 years, as it were, are up in their thinking. May I give you a better option today? Get your ear pierced. Get your ear pierced. Put your ear up to the doorpost and let the Master punch a hole in it, marking that you are voluntarily His. You say, why would I do such a thing? For the exact same reason the guys in the Old Testament did it. Have you realized yet that you're not smart enough to run your own life? Can you not look back and say, how dumb can one person get? Have you not realized that you are not smart enough to outthink the devil? Have you not figured this out yet? Why would a guy stay? Because I am not smart enough to run this show. And I am going to get myself into a world of hurt if I let myself go. And so punch my hole right there because I cannot run my own life. Have you not realized that? That's why you'd stay, because you've realized you're not smart enough to run your own life. You might stay because have you not seen the beauty of the life that God has given you? Yes. Take a good, solid look. Has He not done exceedingly abundantly above all that you could ask or think? Yes. I'd say, I'm going to stay because I like this life. The way of the transgressor was hard, but this life that God has given, I'll take it. I don't want to leave this. Would you not stay for that? Have you not learned to love the Lord? Sure, you came to Him at first because of obligation. There was no way else to go. You didn't know Him at all, but He was your only hope. But have you not learned a lot more about Him since then? Have you not experienced His love, His mercy, and His grace at every turn? Has not your heart responded to that love? And your heart says, put the hole right there. I don't want to leave because I love my Master. Do you not realize what a difference it will make in your service to Him? His service will no longer be a toil. His commandments will no longer be grievous. You won't find yourself longing day after day for the day that you can make your own plans. You've had your ear pierced voluntarily. You have committed yourself to Him forever. Each day, each event, each commandment can be cherished and enjoyed because you are entirely His. This is why you would do this. Are you still serving the Lord because of obligation? Have you just quit serving the Lord because you no longer feel obligated? Or have you let Him put your ear to the door and punch a hole in it? Maybe you're here and you say, I've never served the Lord. I have not allowed Him to remove me from debtor's prison. I asked that this morning you would do that. That you would come to Christ. He has purchased, under no obligation, He has purchased you that you might be saved. He's paid your debt. If you know Christ as your Savior, one question. Have you had your ear pierced? Let's pray.